All right, we are back here getting ready for the NFL draft this week on the Just End the Suffering podcast. Joining us today is the guy who covers college football for the Sporting News. You heard from him a couple of times before on the podcast. The great Bill Bender is here with us. Bill, thanks for calling in today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. As you know, we're all still in the social distancing period here. We're getting ready for this virtual NFL draft. Like, what do you think about this whole thing about doing the draft from home with all the teams sort of teleconferencing each other to get these picks in?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a different world we live in. I mean, I had my kids and my wife just watched the Easter Bunny drive by on the back of a pickup truck because that's the world we live in right now.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but I think, it'll be interesting. It'll be a very different viewer experience. It'll be interesting to see how the NFL can pull it off. I know, and at the end of the day, I think people care more about the picks than the presentation. So at least we get to have the NFL draft.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like most people could just be happy to have something on sports-wise that's not an old game or a horse competition. Just be happy to actually see something that gives you hope it's actually football this year.
Yeah. And, that's where we're all at. It's a day-by-day thing. I mean, I'm based in Ohio where the impact has been at least curbed by very good social distancing by a lot of people. So I think if we do that day by day, hopefully this thing will go down and we can get back on football field.
Indeed. Let's go to the actual draft for a little bit. I want to start off with the guy's probably going number one, Joe Burrow. He's assuming going to the Bengals with the first overall pick. Who, in your opinion, is a good pro comparison for him?
I mean, you've heard the comparisons to Brady and Breeze, which would be the top shelf comparisons. I think with his mobility, his smarts, the way he, gets rid of the ball quickly. I don't know, obviously those are the loftiest comparisons possible, but I think he has a game in between those guys in terms of on the field. And he's very smart. He gets rid of the ball, makes good decisions. And the thing that you keep hearing most about Joe Burrow is how intelligent he is on the football field. And I know some high school coaches around here in Central Ohio who can attest to that back all the way back then. So I think he'll have a very good NFL career. The Bengals should draft him, no doubt in my mind. And it's going to be cool to see how he does when he.
Yeah, it will be cool to see indeed. I also am curious about the next two guys on the board in terms of the quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Herbert. Like, which one of those two do you like better?
I think Tua's the guy I like a little bit better. I think that's no disrespect to Herbert. I think Herbert will have a good career, but Tua's a guy that I think, provided he shows he's healthy, he shows an efficient playmaking skill set through his days at Alabama. His vision's off the charts in terms of how he's able to see the whole field, and I think he'll be able to do that in the next level. And he is the most intriguing player on the board, in my opinion, because the other guys that might go in the top 10, they're okay, but I think Tua's a guy that certainly, as long as he's healthy, he could be a franchise quarterback and make a big difference.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. I feel like the thing with him is obviously the hip, and like I've heard teams are going to go over. I feel like he's going to go as high as 3. I feel like that's going to be a prime trade off for the Lions, and somebody's going to go up there and get him.
Yeah, I mean the draft really does start at 3 because it's going to be interesting to see if they hold on to that pick or if there's trade, if Tua works himself into that part of the draft. Now, really there's any number of teams that should be interested in him, whether it's Miami, the Chargers. Even New England, who heard those rumors. So I think those are all teams to consider, and it'll be interesting to see if somebody makes that trade and pulls up and tries to grab Tua.
Yeah, and this obviously the most tension in the draft usually goes with the quarterback prospects. Talk about 3 of them. Like, how many quarterbacks total do you think are going to get drafted in the first round?
Well, probably, obviously Tua and Joe and Herbert. That's a pretty safe bet there. I guess the question after that is, does a guy like Jordan Love, does somebody take a chance on him? Are there a couple of those other guys? I don't think Jake Fromm will get drafted on day one. But, I mean, those 4 that I mentioned probably go in the first round. Definitely Joe and Tua. Definitely Herbert. And then it'll come down to somebody really likes Jordan Love or not.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. And we're talking about, obviously, you said the draft starts 3. It's because Chase Young is probably going at number 2, the Redskins. And is Chase Young, in your opinion, a better pass rushing prospect than the Nick Bosa was, who came out of Ohio State last year?
I mean, those comparisons are made, and I think they're both going to be impact players. I think they're different kinds of pass rushers. Chase Young off the edge, super athletic, quick, tall, has a bend, and I think Nick Bosa is just a complete, strong, very bull rush type with his great hands. They both have great hands though, and that's what they've learned at Ohio State. They've become good. They became good when they were at Ohio State. Now, but that working with Larry Johnson for 3 years made them elite, and both of them are elite pass rushers. So I mean, I still like Nick Bosa the most out of him, Chase Young, and Joey Bosa. But that doesn't mean Chase Young's just not going to be a all-pro type player at the NFL level.
Yeah, he'll be fun to see how he does in Washington. And obviously, like, I'm here based in New York. The New York teams are both like really interested in the offensive tackle prospects. And we heard the big four at the top there: Jedrick Wills, Andrew Thomas, Mekhi Becton, Tristan Wirfs. So, which of those four guys do you like the most?
I think Becton's he showed the athleticism at the combine, but they all did. Wirfs is probably the one I like the most because I think he's going to be dependable. Obviously that Iowa background, they produce good offensive linemen. So I think he's just the next one that could do a very, very good job for them, be an excellent pass protector. But they're all four. They offer you something. And Willis, obviously, a lot of those Alabama guys have done their thing at the next level. He could be the next one very easily.
Yeah, that's true. I think both the Jets and Giants will be very lucky if they can get one of those tackles. The Jets are also going to be in the market for a receiver. I've heard reports, plenty of them, that this class of wide receiver is incredibly deep. Like, somebody who's watched all these receivers, how much value can teams find looking for receivers in this draft?
Well, you can get whatever kind of receiver you want. That's the advantage. Justin Jefferson is different than Henry Ruggs. He's a burner. T. Higgins and Jerry Jeudy are outstanding receivers, and you can go way down the draft board. I think a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones, who tested well at the combine and maybe a little bit more of a development project. But this is as deep of a receiver class as we've ever had, meaning, you could probably wait a little bit. And most teams probably will. I mean, he's like a guy like Jalen Reagor out of TCU. You can find a purpose for him. So, yeah, that's definitely the deepest position group and going to impact some things there.
Yeah, like, I know a team like obviously I'm a Jet fan, and like the Jets definitely need receivers. Like, my strategy for them would be like, hey, like, if you can take your tackle 11, get a receiver in the second, then get another middle round. So you feel like the odds of you hitting on one of them are pretty high.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's definitely a deep position group in this draft. And, Ruggs is a name that's been tied to the Jets a lot through this process. I mean, I think he'd be a good fit there, but you could probably get two in this draft with how many good ones are running around.
Yeah, what do you think about Jerry Jeudy specifically? Because he's the best guy I've heard in the receiver class. We've heard like great things from him. Like, what do you think he can do at the next level?
I mean, he's complete. He's just like Amari Cooper was. He's just like, maybe not as a physical freak as Julio Jones, but I mean, the Amari Cooper comp is very legit. I mean, they're just polished in their route running, find ways to get open. They're fast, athletic, great hands. He checks every box. I mean, he was probably, I thought going into last year, he was the best player in college football. Now, some other guys, maybe passed him or stood out a little bit more. But Jerry Jeudy's been consistent in his entire career with Alabama, and I look for the same at the NFL level.
Yeah, let's go the other direction. Like, which position group do you feel like is the most thin? Like, where you have to like strike early if you're looking for a guy at certain spots?
Well, I don't think there are a lot of elite corners in this draft. I mean, there's definitely Jeffrey Okudah and some good ones like Christian Fulton or Henderson from Florida, C.J. Henderson. But it's not a super deep group. There are talented corners, but that's a position that NFL teams want you to come in and play right away. And I don't think this is as deep at that position as it is in previous years. Maybe I'm off on that, but that's just my feeling.
Yeah, what about the edge rushing group? Because I feel like last year in particular was like a huge run on the edge rushers early in the draft. And I feel like this year I'm not hearing as many names aside from Chase Young in that category.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, because, last year and the last couple of seasons, you've had a lot of dynamic guys at that position. Now, this year, if you're looking for an edge rusher that's a sliding definition, a guy like Epinesa is going to get taken, but he's not a true edge rusher. Kenny Willekes out of Michigan State, not really an edge rusher, more of a traditional inside-outside defensive end. So I think it isn't the same. And you may make a good point. There aren't a ton of guys out there that could be 10-sack guys in the NFL right away, but that doesn't mean they can't develop into that.
Yeah, what about the running backs? I know J.K. Dobbins is projected as a first rounder in some parts. Do you feel like this is another good draft where you can like find running backs in rounds 3, 4, 5, like the NFL team's been trying to do in recent years?
Jonathan Taylor's a guy that could be that guy. J.K. Dobbins, they're probably the two best running backs in this draft. And Taylor had an excellent combine. Did a very good job. And I think DeAndre Swift's obviously a name that would get tossed in there too. There's not a running back in this class that's top 5 or even top 10 material. But I think somebody might be willing to take a first-round pick on Jonathan Taylor based on what he's done. And he had a better combine than most of those other Wisconsin running backs, Melvin Gordon included.
Yeah, I'm curious that you brought up the combine. One thing I've noticed is obviously with the whole coronavirus situation, a lot of these kids do not get to do their pro days. Like some of the people who opted not to work out the combine now are getting hurt because they can't work out for the scouts. Like, do you think that's going to be a big deal? You think that's the case? You think where some of these scouts just go back to the actual game tape on these guys?
Well, I mean, this is just another part of our weird new reality where you didn't get to see some of these guys work out, or with all the pro days, nobody expected that, and it really changes the outlook. It's going to change the draft because I think teams are going to try to play it a little bit safer with the guys they know instead of guys that they were maybe trying to get more info on later.
Yeah, I feel like the kids who could get hurt the most here, probably like these small school kids who don't usually get the invites to the combine. Like, I feel like a lot of them might end up going undrafted, whereas years past, you have somebody say, I'll take one in the 5th round, 6th round if I have a good feeling on the guy.
Oh, for sure. And that's why the combine was so important for a guy like Chase Claypool. He really increased his stock with how well he performed, and is going to be a mismatch as a wide receiver tight end at the next level. There are some other guys out there that could do a really good job. But, I think it's one of those things where it does hurt those smaller school guys and some of those, or even people like, I don't want to say it's hurt like Chase Young, but Chase Young chose not to work out. There are more questions about more prospects as a result. Young isn't one of those guys, but there'll be other ones that are.
Yeah, one of the more intriguing guys in this draft, and I know he's been linked to the Giants at 4. I don't know if they'll go that way, is Isaiah Simmons, who's sort of like, he's a bit of a hybrid player. Like, where do you think his best fit is on a pro defense?
Well, anywhere. I mean, he can play a little bit of linebacker, a little bit of safety. I mean, not many players talk about that, like getting sacks and getting interceptions in the same breath as being equal. And he's one of those guys. He's outstanding player at Clemson, can play all of those positions, and will be one of those guys that, like Sua Cravens was for a little bit, but I think Simmons is better than that. He had a great combine too, so it just showed how good of an athlete he really is.
Yeah, you mentioned also corners of 4, Jeff Okudah. Like, how big is the drop off from him to the next guy on the board?
Fulton's pretty good. Henderson's pretty good, but Okudah, you could make the argument that he's the best player in this draft too, and that's wild to say considering his teammate Young's probably going to go too. But Okudah's that good. I mean, he's that polished at corner. Ohio State's had a run of cornerbacks that are awesome at the next level, and I think he's going to be the next one. And obviously a lot was made of the exchange he had with a reporter at the combine, but yeah, his tape doesn't lie. He's clean, he's polished, he's got great hips and ability to run and all those kind of things. He's awesome.
Yeah, my last one for you is like, obviously everybody knows the big names, but some people like to try and find those sleepers who aren't getting talked about as much, but can have big impacts on the NFL level. Who are some guys you're looking at that are not getting talked about too much in terms of potential NFL impact?
I mentioned Claypool. He's obviously going to have an impact. I mean, a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he could be interesting in the right NFL scheme, being one of those guys that be a tough inside runner and have a handful of touches every game and make an impact. I think Antoine Winfield Jr. is interesting. Awesome player in Minnesota, and his dad was obviously very good at the NFL level. And when you have players like that perform well at college, you wonder why he didn't get a little more buzz. I think he's a guy that could be awesome at the next level.
Yeah, I think this draft will teach us a lot because I think a lot of these teams are already complaining they're not going to be able to do their usual work. But I feel like the teams that actually can scout are going to have a huge leg up here, as opposed to the ones just relying on the workouts, because they feel like this is the year where, like, if you know how to scout, how to identify talent, you'll do well. Whereas, like, teams struggle every year. I feel like this could be sort of expose the teams who are not good at scouting.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be a once in a lifetime draft. Hopefully we never have to do this again, where these teams are doing this and they are able to, like you said, rely on their scouting, rely on their personnel that evaluate all these talent throughout the year. And it is going to make for a cool draft. I think it's going to be good for us to have that. I mean, at least we have a big event that we can point to and enjoy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the draft. Bill, thanks for all the time today. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, how can people find on social media and keep up with what you're writing at the Sporting News?
Yeah, I'm at sportingnews.com, Bill Bender. We'll have plenty of draft content along the way. Our staff got shortened a little bit with the staffing issues, but we've got enough people there that are ready to go and write a lot about the draft in the next coming weeks. So come check us out.
All right, Bill. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.
All right, and there you have it. That was Bill Bender from the Sporting News talking NFL draft. Up next, into the 30 for 30 on Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls team, The Last Dance, parts 1 and 2 aired on Sunday. We're going to talk about that with some guests right after this.